Hello there everybody, Fast Lego Studios here, and welcome back guys to week number 8 of building up the Lego life-sized Captain Rex sculpture. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, and diving right away into week number 8 of building up Captain Rex, we've made some amazing progress in last week's episode as we built up the entire visor and placed it all the way in place. But nonetheless guys, this week's episode probably will be the episode before the finale of the helmet. This week, I'm hoping to build up the dome and get a lot of progress done there. It's definitely going to be quite a time-consuming process as it's going to be mainly built out of plates. Making this all really nice and curved and making that entire dome shape. We'll be finishing off the build and be getting a lot of really nice curvature placed into the area up top. But aside from the largest thing that I've planned for this week's episode, if we turn the model here, you guys can see that we've got the sides here. This area, I'm hoping to get all finished off, all nice and curved, as I got that bricklink order that I mentioned in last week's episode, so this should be all nice and finished. You guys as well can see that I've added in this little Technic brick off on the side here, and that is to accommodate for the rangefinder that's going to be sticking up and out of the helmet. Very soon I'll be getting to building that, which should be a relatively easy assembly to put together. Then as we continue turning the build, getting this area all nice and caught up and just adding in even more bricks, making all of this nice and leveled off, and then having the entire dome kind of trace the entire perimeter of the helmet. And then looking up to the top of the build, just getting this area up here with the armature structure right the way in the center, a lot more built up, getting a lot more struts running outwards and interlocking with the layers going across. And that right there is just about everything that I want to get done for this week's episode. So without further ado guys, let's dive into those progress updates right now. Alright guys, and diving right away into the very first progress update of the week here, you guys can see that I've got a lot of progress built up to the model. Just as usual, let's start off from the front and work our way to the back. But taking a closer look at the front, you guys can see that right away up top of the visor, just as I promised before, I've added on that weld pattern. It's a very crude weld pattern that's supposed to be kind of indicated that, Captain Rex didn't really take his time to do this, and just made it really sloppy looking in the end, and I really just tried to incorporate that very same result as you guys can see right here. I've looked at a lot of reference pictures of the Clone Wars Captain Rex helmet to get this as accurate as possible. So just making every single little bump kind of match up with the actual reference material was a very time-consuming process. But then, as you guys can see right away how it's textured, once again, I've used the dark tan and medium nougat to give it a little bit more realism, and just making the colors look a lot less solid, and just making it a little bit diverse in that sense. Taking a closer look over onto the Jag eyes of the helmet here, you guys can see that I've got nearly both of them all in place. All that is really left here is just the top little bit here, but not too much, as we're just about to finish that off and get all of that in place. But if you guys take a much closer look towards how some of the little assemblies of the Jag eyes are built, they're using a little bit of snot technique, meaning studs not on top. And as you guys can see, we've got the sideways construction of Lego plates, making a little bit more of a finer touch to the build that Lego bricks cannot offer over such a small space. So it's a very handy technique when it comes to building something like this, and I really just tried to sculpt it right the way into the helmet with the rest of the build. So making it camouflage in with the rest of the dome that we have building up right here. And then as we continue turning the build here, you guys can see that I've got the weld line going right the way up here, all complete. Just try to follow the curve right the way here, just making it, once again, a really crude kind of weld line running up here, and just making it look as not neat as possible. as once again indicated by how Captain Rex made his helmet. And then as we look over onto the sides of the build, you guys can see that I've got the curves running right the way over here. Just got those all nice and in place, and right the way beside that, you guys can see that I've got another curved brick, but this one is on half a stud offset. So I started right the way down here with a jumper, and as I just built it up, I interlocked it with the layers, adding in a little bit more jumpers for that connection to line up within the inside. But then once I got all the way up top here, it really did pay off as an end result. It took a little bit more time to build, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it was definitely worth the extra little bit of connectivity that was necessary going into the inside of the build. And then right the way on the side as well, you guys can see that I've got the beginnings of the rangefinder all in place. I surely do not have the actual rangefinder yet on the tip of this, but soon enough hoping to get that all in place. But for now, all it is just a some Technic couplings, I guess these are. Just some of these parts all nice and connected up one to another, tiled off on the end. And you could rotate it 90 degrees to attach it right the way right here, but sadly it does not really line up with his visor to where he could see through the rangefinder. So I would have initially attached it to one of the circular Lego Technic pin elements, but simply due to the fact that something like this here does not have enough friction, it's way too heavy, and when you attach it to a Technic pin, that friction right there, right in between, it begins really loosening up and doesn't have enough to where it's able to be angled but not just slid down the entire helmet. So a little bit of a compromise had to have been done there, as I used the Technic Lego axle instead, but it makes a really nice and solid connection. Either way that it doesn't perfectly line up with the visor of Captain Rex. And then as we continue turning to the back here, once again, just as I mentioned in every other episode of building up Captain Rex, nothing to see back here, as it's just blank as it goes for the reference material. There is really nothing except just white building up here, so that's exactly what I followed. Just building this out a little bit further, and soon enough we'll be actually curving that dome right the way in. I haven't even started the dome yet, but yet I've already used up quite a significant number of plates to get all of this in place. But soon enough we'll be getting that dome in place and finishing this model of Captain Rex's helmet. And then right the way back here, just as I said in previous week's episode, is I'll be building up the circular build all in its proper colors. If you guys remember this from last week's episode, I built up this little assembly of like a colorful circular piece, but didn't really have the right appropriate colors to build that on the real version. And since this kind of curves a little bit more further out, I as well had to attach a second set of this half circle right the way up here at a slightly elevated level. And then finally, taking a look over up top of the build, you guys can see that I've expanded the armature structure right the way in the center quite a lot higher. If you guys really take a look down there, you guys can see a lot of just bricks stacked one onto another to make the armature frame holder right the way in the center. Plenty of bricks have been used, but hopefully this does pay off, as it really should support the aluminum armature running right the way into the center of the helmet. But that is just about all the progress that I've made in this update. And now let's continue the construction of the dome in a form of a time lapse. Alright guys, and here we are after the time lapse, as I've gotten a little bit more height built up to the entire front of the helmet. Still plenty of progress to be done all the way back here to make it even rounder and kind of finish all this off. As you guys can see all the way back there, there's Still plenty of building to be done, but I've really been trying to focus on the front and get these Jag eyes all built up. Getting the design across was quite a thing there, but I've got them all in place now, and as you guys can see, nearly got them built up. A little bit more plates right the way off the sides here, but once we get those in place, those will be all complete. So for now, this is what we have, and the result is still looking quite phenomenal. So that is really nice. And then right the way above that, you guys can see that I've got the fin building right the way up here. The one that's supposed to be just running its way over to the top. It's kind of that little jut out of the helmet that the helmet itself has. So I've got the very beginnings of that built up. Just interlocking it with as many plates as possible, going all the way throughout the build and really stabilizing it to a whole new level. So not only bricks, but just a lot more plates to get this really secure and for nothing to collapse once I push anything down. And then as we turn the build just about slightly here, you guys can see that I've got the first set of tally marks all in place. This one took me quite a little bit of trial and error to get right, but finally got that one right, and I'm really happy with the end result. I've once again tried to integrate it with the build, just as I did with the Jag eyes going right about here, and just make it sculpted into the build as much as possible. So this really just involves knowing Lego geometry to figure out how you can insert this into the build and how I can get this much space just utilized to fit so many little details. But in the end, I'm really happy with how it all turned out. As you guys can see, we have the 4 marks right here and then the 5th one right about here slashing through all 4. So that turned out really nice in the end result. And soon enough will be continued, as we'll be having another 2 over here and then another 3 over the top. So plenty more plates to be used to build all of these up, but looking forward to doing that in the near future. Probably at this point by next week's episode. But once we get all of that in place, the build should be looking a lot more complete. But with all of that being in mind, guys, let's outro out the video. And there we are, guys, at the end of building up Captain Rex for week number 8. We once again made some phenomenal progress in this week's episode, just as we do in every episode here of building up the helmet, but nonetheless, you guys can see that we've gotten the crude weld pattern going across the visor all complete. Just building that up with a lot of plates, finally got that all in place, really happy that I did so. And right above that, we've got the Jag eyes all in place as well. Those took a little bit of trial and error as well to get right, but I got those in place and those look really nice in the end result. And off the side of the model, I still need to get the rangefinder in place, as it is just 50 Lego pieces that I need to put together and build that little part of the model. So probably that will also happen all by next week's episode to get all of that little stuff into place, the finishing touches, and get the rest of the build complete. Still plenty of building to be done around the whole build, with having all the plates being placed in a position, but for now this is all that we've gotten done. Off the sides of the build, you guys can see that we've got the very beginnings of the tally marks all in place, as there's supposed to be 6 on either side, and I still have 1 on either side of the build. So that'll be all in the future plans to get this all complete, get those plates on the back of the build in place, get more bricks, just finishing it off, solidifying the model, and getting the structure right the way in the center all built up. So plenty of progress still to go, but I think I can pull it off all by next week's episode. Once again, stay tuned till next week's episode to find out if we'll be able to finish. But with all of that being in mind, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and comment down below in the comment section of what are your guys' thoughts on this nearly complete Captain Rex helmet. But with all things considered, keep on building, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.